Thursday slate. But first, another congratulations to Sheets for another great performance, another great night in DFS, and we're going to talk about it a little bit just before we get into the slate. Congratulations, man, and tell us a little bit about last night.
Yeah, so as you guys know, I told everybody what I was going to do. I mean, process wise online, but then again, I really had no idea who I was going to play because at the time that we had to leave, I mean, I still didn't even know if campaign was in or out. I was just waiting to see my text to see if anybody would tell me he was out or anybody was in or anything. I didn't hear any news at all, so I just presumed that he was in. So I just kind of left things the way they did. And I played my usual, I played like 50 lineups in on FanDuel, just in the shot, and then I played the bigger, the 888 in DraftKings, and it didn't look like I was getting off to any kind of good start pretty much anywhere. But I knew that I had Luka later, and then I saw that like one of my FanDuel ones was kind of off to the races, like fighting, and the cool thing about FanDuel is that it shows you like what you're projected to score, and once you're locked, pretty much, and what the other guys are projecting to score, and the guy that was in first was only projecting to score like 8 points higher than me, and I was like in 80th or something like that, but I had like guys left, and there was only a couple of guys projecting more than me, so I had to run hot, but I didn't have to run that hot. And so then what happened was, let me share my screen a second. So this was the guy that I was sweating, and obviously Sengun was going freaking ballistic, right? Totally saying, so Wembanyama, you want to play? It's fine by me. I can play too a little bit, And Misic, did well enough, and then and then the good thing was that I had both Van Vliet and Sengun in like what was kind of a competitive game. Yeah. And I had Oubre that all the way to the end because I had these other guys who kind of blew out. The Olynyk and Zion, those games blew out, but they scored enough. So then what happened was I got the lead, and then I said, okay, but I have no Luka in this, so I have to kind of look and see where the Lukas are, kind of behind me. But they were pretty far behind. But going into the fourth quarter, there was one guy with like 20, I don't know, like 20 points or so behind me. And I'm like, oh man, he's going to come and get me. But then I had these DraftKings lineups that were like sort of competing for good prizes in the big ones with Luka in it, So I was trying to middle it, like, what am I even rooting for here?
Right.
I figured out that if Luka scored enough to get past my FanDuel one, I might have gotten like fourth in the mega eights here for like 30 or something or 20. So I was kind of okay regardless of what happened. But then once they finally gave up with 3 minutes to go and took Luka out, then everything was just kind of locked. So ended up with this lineup in DraftKings, getting third in the splash and eighth in the mega eights, despite having Sam Merrill, and Noir, like neither of them really did anything.
Yeah, Noir at 3,400 is pretty good.
Yeah, and he got like 5 points more a blowout run at the end. That helped out. And your man, the Butler, he did right. But Sengun was obviously the hero of the day. And just so you guys know, as far as process goes, I put my updates as of 7/15. I threw them into the Saber Sim. I ran the contest sims, and what I did was I did min uniques 4, which is really like a lot of min uniques, which means that it's really just kind of spreading things out a little bit. And like I said, I'm just kind of experimenting with all different ways to do it. But it's always good, when I quote unquote only play 50, I guess, and all these guys that are in here were like max entering. You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah. I mean, listen. I don't play FanDuel all that much, so I was happy to. I don't know if I ever won this thing on FanDuel. Now that I think about it, so
that's pretty awesome.
I continue to run really, really hot, and And one thing about it is I keep saying that, and this is not something you can control, but so much of your results in GPPs comes down to how you do when you have like a shot. You know what I mean? Because you don't have a shot all that often, and to be able to actually get first, like when you have a shot somewhere in the top 10, like makes like literally all the difference in the results. You know, it's so hard.
Absolutely. No, this is one thing that's been amazing. Like, I don't know how, I mean, look, you obviously can't control it after you enter the lineups, but you've had incredible finishing power with a lot of your lineups. And even seeing me, I was watching you in the 888 last night, so I was disappointed. I was like, oh no, this is one of the times where Sheets is not going to quite get there. And we haven't seen one of those in a while. Usually you get there and you're just not near it. And this time, then right then you said, wait, hold on. Look at our Discord.
It's so funny because I went to Discord. I went to Discord and I saw what's his name, Leon, whatever. He was like sort of sweating. He's like, ooh, Sheets is trying to get fourth in the 888. I'm like, oh, they weren't even watching the other way. So I'm like, oh, too bad. But whoop, this guy came in and did.
That's pretty sick.
So
well, awesome job, man. It's truly an incredible run that you're on, and I really feel like you should listen to Sheets and what we're saying in these shows and not me. But
but literally it has nothing. I don't want to say nothing to do with it, but very, very little to do with these early. Honestly, with these early things,
the early stuff,
it has so much more to do. Just again with how I'm dealing with my lineup construction and how I'm using Saber Sim. And I honestly don't know the answer of how to play. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to figure it out like everybody else. So I just kind of screw around with it. And the thing is, one of the benefits of again playing all these different sports also is that just more reps of like using everything. And so I'm just trying to get a sense for what's what. So yeah, obviously, very, very happy about it. And today we're gonna try to win $1 million, huh?
Try to get the springboard win last night.
Yep. And so we're gonna try for that. I'm gonna probably do a live sweat. We'll do that. What time? I guess 11 o'clock, right? Does that make sense?
The only problem with 11 o'clock is that's good. That's good tonight.
Yeah, we'll do it like 11 o'clock. That seems to be the plan. All right, so I guess you want to get going here? Let's see.
Let's do it. Sorry about that. All right, here we go. So let's get into it. And by the way, when Sheet says just messing around, whenever he comes on and does his like little process stuff, I really encourage everybody to watch like some of the tutorials and even some of the stuff, because really, like, I really do think there is there's a method to the madness. It's not just like a coincidental, oh, I messed around and I happen to win again. Oh, I messed around. It's been too long. It's been too many times. And I just think that it's really interesting, and we should probably on certain nights, probably not tonight, but probably do more early build stuff. And we've been doing that, I guess, enough. But I just wanted to point that out. I don't want you to sell yourself short. I know you hate taking any credit for anything, but I do think you deserve it.
All right, so we got a chance to play the same dudes. It looks like tonight. I'm looking at the early sheets, but I'm first looking at the first time and seeing these same freaking guys, right? These Clevelands and Houstons and Phillies, and I guess we'll get to there. But it looks like a very similar group of dudes. No.
Yep, it's a very similar group of dudes, and the difference is they all project a little bit better tonight. Whether or not that's just an early projection, whether or not there's reason for that, we'll get into as we go through game by game, because it is a very different than what it initially looked like. So what do you have in this first game? Because great matchup for Orlando, but hard to find anything that really makes a ton of sense from it sort of seems like very evened out, and the projections seem pretty accurate to me.
I would go. I mean, my top guy here, I would go back to Wendell Carter Jr. I mean, listen, it's not going to help too much on a slate where the other center scores 80, right? But he still had a very, very nice game. I don't know how he usually does on back-to-backs or things like that, but he still looks like a good play as far as I'm looking at it. 5,400. And I also listen. These other Orlando guys are pretty close to. I mean, they're not like all the way at the top values, but Banchero at 8,600 looks totally reasonable, and Wagner, whatever, at 7,400 looks reasonable. And then I'll have to ask you about Jonathan Isaac again at 3,400. Suggs. I mean, all these guys look okay. I'm not really getting to any of the Washingtons like at all. So I would mention that.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I really think like it's hard for someone not to hit a monster game against this this Washington team, but they just play so many guys, and it does get a little tricky. I like you. I have Carter as my best play here, but I mean, Caleb Houston is probably going to get the start tonight. I think Cole Anthony is a wild card play. It's a kind of matchup I could see, but like everything feels a little bit fringy to me at the moment. I'd like to try to find a way to force something in. I just don't know what that is yet, and I'm going to try to figure something out today. If I had to pick right now, I think my guess would be Wagner or Banchero, but Markelle Fultz at 3,900. Is he really worse than these other values we have later? Maybe, but is it that big of a gap? I don't know. So I feel very wish-washy with Orlando, knowing I want to play someone, but having a hard time finding anyone. And I am sort of a little bit surprised by this projection, but for Corey Kispert, I want to see where it lands by the end of the day. But that would be the only one who really stands out from a pricing thing. And look, it's a terrible matchup for all these guys, but we've seen Jordan Poole is basically the every other game guy. He scores he like 7 X's every other game, and then the other rest of the time he just duds out. As a wild card GPP play, I don't mind it, but no priorities for me from this game, at least at first look.
You mentioned that Caleb Houston might start.
Yeah.
Where is somebody out, or they just think he's going to start?
Jonathan Isaac is out, and Gary Harris is out. Gary Harris being the one he would.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Oh, okay.
But Gary Harris, yeah, it's hard with Orlando because even when one guy goes out, the minutes still allocate basically the same, because all they do is they just put Anthony Black more in the mix, and they play Cole Anthony and Markelle Fultz more minutes. I mean, think about this. At point guard, they have Suggs, Fultz, Cole Anthony, and Anthony Black. So they don't really – one guy being out, and then they cross over to shooting guard also. And then, they have 6 guards that they're still projected to play tonight. So Joe Ingles just gets more in the mix. But it really usually just spreads out unless we get one extra guy out. So those 2 guys being out is not it's slightly relevant, but it's not as relevant as it might seem.
Well, but I mean, let's talk more about this. So there's Isaac out. So is this Caleb Houston? Is he like going to be like a lock? I mean,
no, not even close. Okay. He started a ton of games, and I actually got him at I was all thrilled because he had 20 fantasy points at halftime when he was at 3K, and no one played him. He was like 1% owned because there was so much value on the slate, and he ended up with 23 that game, and that was his high game, I believe, possibly of the season. No, he's had a couple. He had one huge game earlier this year. Most of the time, you're going to see him play like the same amount of 18 minutes, 20 minutes, and be very, very low usage and not really do anything, because they have him at 26 right now, and he's such a bad fantasy point per minute player. He's still projected at 15 fantasy points. So it's definitely a guy we can consider, but I don't think it's a guy that you want to you certainly don't want to lock in. It's totally dependent on if he hits a couple threes, if he gets a steal or two, you know what I mean? He's like literally like the last guy they have to actually touch the ball on this team. He's basically like PJ Tucker's role in terms of just standing and shooting threes. He doesn't really do that much when everybody's healthy. When they're not, it's a different story, but they've got too many bodies healthy right now. And yeah. All right. Charlotte, Atlanta, you got next?
No, I have
Cleveland, Atlanta. Sorry, excuse me.
Yeah, I have hold on. Yeah, so Cleveland, Atlanta, I have the same guys as I think as yesterday, but I have so far Dean Wade is like the top point per dollar guy. And then I have Jared Allen, Garland again, LeVert again. So those same 4 guys, and Atlanta not really getting to too much. I guess Capella would be my favorite. Did Dean Wade not? I ended up, I don't think, playing him. Did he?
No, Mobley got hurt is what happened.
Oh, okay. What happened? Did Dean Wade get in? He played. Oh,
yeah,
boy, 41 fantasy points.
He went completely berserk.
Good grief. Well, I can't imagine that being even if he's very projectable if you got in 21 minutes. But if, like you said, but if Mobley, so I guess he's going to be out. That's the story, huh? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Mobley is out. I expect him to be out anyway. He's doubtful.
Yeah. So Dean Wade will get the start, and Jared Allen will be, I think, a great play. I think it's 7,300.
Just for what it's worth to people, Wade was a terrible play last night for anybody who played him. I just want to say, like, we can't go back and pretend that these injuries don't happen, and people love to do that. And they're like, "Oh, this happened." No, when you get a player injured, and you just cannot explain enough. I don't want to go into why didn't we play Dean Wade last night? Like, that's the last way you should look at DFS, because that would have made no sense. Tonight it makes a lot more sense. Sorry, I was just responding to a couple things in chat. All right. So Wade. I'm sorry, Sheets. What did you say for this one?
So I thought Wade was going to look like a good point per dollar play. I think Jared Allen's going to look like. I mean, he's going to probably be the easiest play to make, I think. And then Garland, right back to Garland again. With Mobley out, just more usage. Garland, Allen, Wade, LeVert again, same guys, I think.
Yeah, great matchup on a back-to-back. It's a little worrisome with how thin they're getting that maybe something bad could happen and they could get crushed. Max Struss is questionable, which is a huge questionable tag to me, because I will go back to LeVert, and I still would go back to LeVert anyway, but Struss is questionable officially right now. I still think that Wade would probably end up starting, but we'd have to, I'd like to see a starting lineup. And Niang, I think is in play as well. But Jared Allen certainly looks like the strongest, easiest one. It is a back-to-back. Both he and Garland would be my two easier ones to plug in, and then Wade looks like the value. But I think you're playing at least two minimum, and at least if the slate broke right now. And those are the guys I would focus on. Also, I know they raised the price on Sam Merrill. I wouldn't mind taking a shot if Struss is out on a low projected, low owned Sam Merrill instead of when everybody wants to play him type of thing. He's, like I said, he can always get hot. It's a great matchup, and I don't like playing him at 35% ownership because he's just going to make threes basically. But I will take a shot on the guy who's going to play enough to just make threes against Atlanta and who's not going to be owned. So if Struss is out, I would go right back there. Atlanta, we don't know if Kobe Buffkin's going to be available or not. If he does, he actually looks like a reasonably projected play. And then I'd like to get a run back, but really having a hard time doing so. So probably going to be looking at 2 or 3 Clevelands and nobody from Atlanta at first glance for me. Maybe it's one I could try to force in later, but if I had to do anybody, it would probably be Bogdanovich. But I don't think I'm gonna force it in today. So that's where I'm at.
I will say this, by the way, it's not the greatest live sweat tonight, only because everything's from the early games. It looks like.
Well, what about the Utah game though?
I guess why is there stuff? I mean, I'm getting nothing from the Utah game right now.
Well, yeah, but we don't know who's playing yet.
That's true.
Keontae George being out.
What's going on here? Wow, these.
Wait, Luka.
Yeah, these
you really don't.
Wait, hold on. I'm just missing something here because these projections.
Yeah, Utah's got one of the best projected teams on the slate, I think.
Yeah, so I'm. This is a disaster. I have to redo all my projections. I apologize. Yeah, it looks like I missed half the games. Sorry about that, everybody. Nobody said it was perfect.
No, you're fine.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
All right. So we could talk about the games I do know something about, I guess.
Okay, let's go to the next one you got on there.
So I imagine that the Memphis Philly game is going to highlight the same Philly guys as before. That being Cameron Payne, I guess, and Tobias Harris. Who else? And Kelly Oubre again. Now it's a back-to-back, so it's a little bit more difficult. But I imagine we're going to play all those guys again. No.
Yeah, I think that Payne, they did raise the prices a little bit, but Oubre they didn't start, which is why he was 12% on DraftKings instead of 40%. Again, I just remind everybody that was a horrible mistake by the field. Oubre is a much better position if he was coming off the bench in general. because he gets to run the whole second unit and he gets to play with the starters and close the game too. So it really doesn't change his minutes any. All it does is just change his projection for some reason. And Oubre is not going to project great again today. And I think Oubre is a tremendous play. I don't remember the last time he did it 2 nights in a row, and he's kind of the back-to-backs and everything, but we haven't seen him have this much free reign as he will tonight. So I have it ranked Payne, Oubre, Harris, Lowry, but I actually think you can make an argument for Bamba and Reed too. But right now, that's the way I've got it ranked. I do think they're all kind of interesting. Payne is the one. I don't think you have to play him if he's going to be 50% owned because there's other value you can take shots on. But I do think he's a pretty solid one.
And I don't know if you meant anything from Memphis or.
Hey, Jaren Jackson Jr. We just have to know if he plays or not. If not, I don't mind taking a shot again on Luke Kennard. I don't mind taking a shot on Gigi Jackson, Jordan Goodwin potentially. I'd have to take a look and see what the projection said without Jaren Jackson. But I think we'll get that information. I'm hoping we get that information after shoot around. And if Jaren Jackson Jr. plays, by the way, he's a pretty good play. And you can have it. This feels like a nice middling build type of day. Feels like you could go up and down today, but I feel like mostly like the middling builds make a lot of sense to me today.
I have a question. Is Maxey actually out?
Maxey's out.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
That's the only reason these guys are showing up.
No, I just see questionable, but I didn't dig into it.
Yeah. And so I'd say Payne, Harris, Oubre as the guys for me in this game. But we'll have to revisit Memphis later. Okay, moving on. What do we have?
They heard me in Houston when I was asking if Sengun was in a funk, huh?
You know what? Yeah, they certainly did. And by the way, I have to point out that I've looked at this. 3 of your huge wins this year out of the last 5 have had multiple Houston players on everything. So
there you go. And you know what? It was really funny. We talked about yesterday. We talked about and I talked about this, that like all those times Fred VanVleet shows up as a good play every freaking day. I'm like, I'm gonna have to play him again. And everyone, you know what? Just when you think he's not gonna do it, he just does it.
Yep, and he did it with Sengun, which is again the only times I remember seeing that work is when they've landed in your lineup. So somehow every time you play them, you should just know to play them. All right, talk about this Clippers and Houston situation.
Well, I mean, would you go back to these guys?
It's interesting. It's not a good matchup, but it is a back-to-back. I think that at low ownership, it's interesting.
Yeah, I'm getting Sengun again as at 8K. I mean, I'm probably going to be the sucker that plays him. You want to know the truth?
I don't blame you.
I mean, like, I also see his ownership is like pretty tame. I can't imagine that being the case, but I like him. I just redid the projections, by the way. Houston, other Houston guys, I'm really not seeing. Clippers, Kawhi, 8,700 be the best, I guess. But boy, maybe we should just. I guess the only reason it's that Sengun is not like a really just even higher owned is because you're getting Jared Allen. Probably looks like as good, probably a better play point per dollar wise. And Vooch is a good enough play at 8,100. I'm gonna have to play some Sengun though. I owe him something, right? I mean, I owe him a little bit of exposure, I suppose. So I like him, but I really don't like anybody else from the Houston side.
Yeah, I'm just gonna point out that James Harden is back in Houston.
He is, isn't he?
I don't care what anybody says. That's probably going to be enough. Like, again, it's weird though because it's not like a revenge factor. It's like a showing out for the guys that love you. I mean, he's still beloved in Houston. I think that I don't know. I think it's all I always like getting to one of these Clippers because it feels like every night. Well, most nights one of them get there. The last couple nights it's been a little bit weird, but most nights this season one of them sort of smashes. I kind of like Harden. I don't like his price, but I do think that he's an interesting tournament play. And I was trying to decide between he, Paul George, and Kawhi, and maybe I use that as a differentiator, is just say, look, he is back in Houston where everybody thinks he's the best basketball player that ever lived. You could ask people who are Rockets fans; they're completely delusional people. They really think James Harden has been the best player in the NBA. They think he's been better than LeBron over the last 10 years. Crazy fans, these Rockets fans. But he's beloved there, and that could go one of two ways. He could shrink into himself and do nothing, or he could go back to old school Harden if he hits a couple shots early. And by the way, he's going to be heavily in the mix and play 1 million minutes anyway. I think it's a totally reasonable play. So I'm going to say that Harden is my get weird play. And the only reason it's get weird because he's going to be 1% owned. By the way, the other night when he was 1% owned, he had 49 fantasy points. But he had 49 fantasy points with 7 minutes to go and then missed 7 shots in a row to end the game. He honestly could have been on his way to 60. So I had that one pegged a little bit, pretty well. I'm with you. I think going back to the big men on the back-to-backs, especially the young big men, I'm more inclined to do than going with, jump shooters or guys who have to, use more energy bringing the ball up the court and I don't know, pressing on defense and whatnot. So I like Şengün. I think that I just have a little bit of a weird Jalen Green feeling that this might be a good Jalen Green spot. I don't have any logic for it. I also think there's a reasonable chance that Dylan Brooks either gets thrown out of this game or has a decent game. So those are my takes on the game. Nobody who's a priority for me at the moment, but I do like the Harden Şengün idea if I can make it work.
So this is, I changed my mind. So this is kind of a really sort of a cool late sweat a slate, because you have these 4 games at 7:30, right? Of which, you get a lot of value in Philly, a lot of value in Cleveland or whatever. And then you get the Chicago-Utah game, right, where all the other quote-unquote value is. And then if you rate everybody, I'm looking ahead, just by fantasy points, the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 raw points projections are all in the last 2 games. And none of them are good value. You know what I mean? So it's going to be interesting. You can smash all you want with Cleveland and smash all you want with Chicago, but you're still going to get those. You still have to deal with 5 guys that can score 70 fantasy points. That you better hope you have one of them or other people don't or something like that. Anyway, so let's talk about it. So Chicago, Utah, as you mentioned, so perfectly before I realized I had to redo all my projection, was this is the second game. Well, I shouldn't even say it. Maybe it's the top-rated game now that I think about it. Utah, we got Semenuk, 3,500. You got Sensabaugh again, 3,400. Chris Dunn, 4K. Those are the top point per dollar guys. And then it's actually a little bit of a drop to John Collins. Am I missing anybody from Utah? And then that's my rhetorical question, which you can answer. And then Chicago, Kobe White, DeRozan, Vooch, as I mentioned before. So yeah, you can go ahead and stack this game if you want.
Yeah. So starting with the Chicago side, I really like the idea of getting exposure to, again, as always, the big 3, and then you throw in well, Drummond was projected so well, the other night, and now he's not the same thing. Actually, he's projecting okay on SaberSim. Again, with Caruso, I'm usually out on Drummond unless they're playing the double big matchups, and they won't do that against Utah unless something weird changes. I'm trying to weight who I like the best between Vooch, White, and DeRozan. As of right now, I have it ranked that way: Vooch, White, DeRozan. Something feels a little better to me about playing White because I don't know. I feel like these kind of matchups he's just been really, really good in, but I don't mind Vooch either. And I also could see Drummond being good in this matchup. So that's why maybe I have a little less interest in Vooch, even though they'll probably get minutes together at some point. Probably worth noting that Desonmu has been pretty good consistently, but I probably am not getting there. I think Kobe White, I have one bowl written down, but I think Kobe White would be the one I like the best as of right now. It feels weird to say it, and by the end of the day, I very well may end up on DeRozan. I'm just going to have to see how my builds go. And on the Utah side, this is where you're getting most of your stuff, most of your value, I think. We lost Taylor Hendricks in addition to all the other stuff, and we might lose Keontae George as well. And if that happens, I think you might end up with like some people playing like 5 guys from Utah. In fact, I think you will have that because already Dunn, Sensabaugh, and Samanic already all look like good plays. I probably would only like to play 2 of them. I think I have a little bit. I'm a little concerned about the Samanic minutes.
Sure.
I'm a little concerned about Sensabaugh's production and Chris Dunn's production, but they're going to at least have some sort of a role here. But I really do think you need to play like, I don't know, you probably need to play at least one of them. And if I had to pick one right now, I think it'd be Samanic, but I think he's got plenty of upside. I just think that they're all a little bit fringy. If we hear about later stuff later today, I might go that direction. But as of right now, I definitely would get into at least one of these guys. And then I would be much higher than the field apparently on John Collins, on Colin Sexton, on Jordan Clarkson. Jordan Clarkson just scored 7 million points the other night, and now we're gonna say he's projected. Saberson hasn't projected at 27, and even before when Keontae George was projected to play the other night, he was projected at 35. I don't understand that. I just think it's a weird projection. Yes, Chicago is good against the guard position because they have Caruso, but Caruso can't guard Sexton and Clarkson and whoever else, whether it's Dunn or whoever else is out there. So I like the idea of Samanic with at least one spend up. I like Collins, and assuming that he starts at center and they don't start another center. It's really going to come down to their starting lineup, and that's what makes this slate so hard because they may not start Samanic, and they may start Yurt 7. They may start Samanic and Yurt 7 because Hendricks is out. We're projecting that Sensabaugh is going to start again, I believe, but I don't know that he will. So I really it's going to come down to their starting lineup, and that's going to dictate what I want to do. And also Keontae George's health. This is a great argument for just playing the guys you like at the beginning, maybe not the value, and then maybe waiting on this Utah stuff because I do think Keontae George is a big thing because without him, I think one of Clarkson or Sexton, and possibly both, completely smash like they did the other night. So. Definitely a game that I've got circled as my favorite stacking game, but all that being said, I don't know who's playing yet. So
what kind of pace does Chicago play at? The only reason I asked,
slow, but Utah will get to play at their pace at home.
Right. No, what I was going to say is Utah is just a big pace down matchup coming off of that Washington game, which I mean I was mentioning when I spoke to you about this yesterday. I mean that game was ridiculous, And so I don't know if I'd really want to chase like another Clarkson ceiling like that. But like you said, he is at home and he just does better at home. I don't know what else to say. Yeah. So anyway, this is this step. So what about this guy, this center here? Has he played minutes before? This Samanic? Let me just see. 23 minutes. I guess we take 23. Is that the story? Well, because Kessler's out, right? I'm just trying to see why he's the man right now. Because Kessler.
Samanic started last night. No, it's because Kessler and Hendricks are out.
Okay.
And they started him last night. That's the main reason. So we would assume they would do that again.
Let's go back to Chicago for a second. So we do you think this is the game where Drummond plays the 16 or has upside?
No, it's most likely the game where he plays the 16. Okay. But it's totally. I mean, it's a wild card play if you do play Drummond. Again, as I mentioned, it was ridiculous the projections the other day. They were completely wrong. They were acting like they were going to play the double bigs, and there was no reason to act like it. There was no reason to wait on the starting lineup. They just got everybody into a tizzy for no reason.
Okay, so Portland. Actually, let's talk about something else. So there's an hour break, not hour break really, but an hour between the start times. Then you have OKC, Portland, Milwaukee, Golden State. Wow, look at all these studs in these games. It's crazy. But we'll start with OKC, Portland. I guess let me just see if those guys from Portland still look decent. Simon's at 8,200. I mean, he completely went ballistic in this last game, but I mean, this is not an easy matchup. I'd like to think they keep the game okay because they're at home though, but maybe not. What's the spread? Is it 10? I'm just guessing.
Of the
Portland OKC.
It's 13.5.
13.5 road favorite. Wow. So yeah, I don't know if I want to play Simons here at 8,200. And unless something else pops up again with these. Listen, the Portland injury report is still always fishy. Let me just see. Jeremy Grant questionable. That's no help. Kamara questionable. That's no help. Is it worth and I don't want to save all the value for this game. You know what I mean?
I don't even know who you'd be saving it for, even if those guys are
out. I know. So maybe a pass, I guess. Or I mean, if you want to play a narrative where somehow Portland keeps it close, then you could play. It's certainly going to be because Simon scores 60 fantasy points, right? So you could play. You want to play Simons with Shea? I mean, I've made worse plays. So that's something you could do in this game. Aside from that, though, can you do a one-off of OKC of Shea without a run back? I don't know.
I just have no interest in this particularly. I don't really see why we're trying to play it.
Okay. Even better.
It doesn't for me do anything. Shea is always in play. Simons is the one who I might change my tune on. I think he's actually a really interesting play because he has a massive ceiling. It's a team that plays fast, and I really think that we could. I think Simons makes a lot of sense. But again, with the question marks, what it would do is Banton would probably become back in play if those guys were out again. They raised Rupert's price. Otherwise, he would have been in play. He did pretty well. He 7X the other night when he was minimum cost. Everybody else was raised at enough of a point, except for maybe Jabari Walker. Jabari Walker would probably look like the best of those guys if those guys were all out. But nobody who would become a must play for me, which means I don't have to sit and wait on it. Although it would be nice to have, and maybe it's a little bit better to wait because of it. I don't know, man. I just don't think I can quite pull the trigger there.
With
Simon would be my favorite.
With Milwaukee Golden State, with $1 million for first, it would be sort of nice and appreciated if they announced whether Giannis was going to play at a reasonable hour.
Yes,
I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, I know that Milwaukee doesn't care about the 2,500 on DraftKings, but it would be very nice. If we knew that, just because again, if he's out, then all those other Milwaukee guys are just going to be good plays again, So that's all I can say, except for the fact that I will also say that Giannis is probably a good play if he plays. So I just don't know if he's going to or not. I'd like to think that he's going to go into Golden State.
It's a nationally televised game. I'm pretty sure not only will he play, I'm pretty sure he will have the news earlier than
that's something worth mentioning.
That's my hope. I shouldn't say it, but I'm hoping for it.
And I'm not really getting anything on Golden State. I guess.
Can I point out one thing just because our chat's getting kind of upset? Guys, we do our normal game by game. We used to just do this on video recording. So don't get upset at us for not reading the chat. You're asking questions that are all out of order. We go game by game. We've done this every day for years, and we will get to things, but we can't just jump from game to game and read every part of the chat. So don't get mad like Josh is about read the chat sheesh like he did yesterday too, I think. There's no reason to get upset at us. We're trying to go game by game. We will get to everything when we can. You can't do everything at once. So let us go game by game, and then we'll try to get to as many questions as we can. Sorry.
Boy, they're really they're really going to get mad.
I don't care if they get mad.
When I say that I just literally just hit the chat view right now. I wasn't even watching it at all.
No. I try to keep up with it, but I can't bounce around from game to game when you're talking. Sorry, go ahead, Chief.
Okay.
We were on Milwaukee Golden State. So you said the Giannis thing, but did you have anything from Golden State?
I don't. But I actually do want to address something now that I'm looking back on this. I think about this a lot, and we're going to talk about this when baseball comes as well. Josh was saying, the read the chat sheesh guy, he was saying that the Wizards are first in pace, Bulls are dead last. So it's always a very interesting discussion. What does that mean? you know.
But I said that like 30 minutes ago.
Yeah.
It's like, we know that. That doesn't mean anything.
No. What I mean though is that what does that mean? In other words, like, is it more likely that the dead last in pace team, kind of goes much faster, or that the fast paced team goes much slower, or do they meet in the middle? I've heard it argued that the home team usually dictates that ratio.
There's actually statistical evidence proving that that's actually extremely accurate.
Oh, is that right? I've also heard something like makes more sense, that the better team, whatever that means.
That's another thing that they found in the history.
Yeah. Yes. So it's when these guys play each other, it's always, listen, when the first pace team plays the last pace team, you're always going to have a pace down spot for the top pace team and a pace up spot for the last place team. That's the way it is. Similarly, when we talk about baseball, probably sooner than later, we're going to talk about park upgrades and things like that, and park downgrades. Like Colorado always has a park downgrade. You know what I mean? Like whatever, like always. And teams that go into Colorado always have a park upgrade. But where does it kind of coagulate? Anyway. All right. So
no, it's a good question, but as you brought it up, I'm gonna say something to it. Like, I do think that yes, it is a downgrade matchup for Utah, but the point is that Utah's missing a bunch of bodies. It's not like we're just trying to play Utah against Chicago here. Also, for what it's worth, taking Vegas lines is usually the best thing you can do in terms of the situation. And it's a 223.5, which is a low total for a Utah game, and it's a high total for a Bulls game. It's because they play at opposite paces. Yes, there's a chance that it's going to be slower pace. It doesn't matter that much when it comes into the value who's going to be playing, because they're missing their two bigs. That's all I would say.
Jolly say I'm not seeing any 1 million the first tournament. It's literally been up on my screen like for an hour.
Yeah,
it says right there 1M for first. So I don't know what to say. It's a 2,500 buy-in, so maybe you have to scroll up in your lobby to see it or something like that. But yeah, they run this once a month, once every 2 months or something like that.
Now once a month. It used to be once like twice a year, and then before that it was once a year. Then it was never. So I'm happy that
they've run this like 6 times already. Sure, I haven't cashed yet, so we'll see what happens.
They've run. I had like a 17th in one of them.
Oh really?
This year, but nothing exciting.
What's the max that people are going to be entering this thing? Like 20 or something?
I think it might. I didn't double check. I think it's 16 or 36. I'll double check after we're done.
All right. Well, I'm gonna have one. Promise.
All right. Well, I got to finish. Or do you want to finish up?
Yeah. Sorry about that. So
no.
Sacramento, LA. Yeah. So as I mentioned, you have some high projected guys in here. Just as far as raw points go, and you do have quote unquote value to make that work. If you wanted to. Anthony Davis. There's a 55-point projection, 54 points, whatever. Domantas Sabonis has a 53-point projection. Shea from the previous game, whatever. You have LeBron with an 81, with a 51. So, yeah, I mean, raw points does matter here. I just feel as though that you're going to get enough points out of the mid-range guys, I think, where you don't have to do this, But I mean, you're gonna tell me you want to play. First of all, is Foxy? If you want to tell me you want to play Fox and LeBron in the same lineup or something like that, or Fox and AD, I'm not gonna argue with you really. But I don't. Boy, it's so funny. Like I used to always want to get some of this at the end, but there's like a lot of good plays today, so I don't know if I'm gonna get there.
Yeah. I like Fox and I like AD, but I have a similar sentiment to you that it's kind of hard to get to all these guys today. Yeah, but I mean, not necessarily hard. Just like I said, there's good value in that mid range. So I'm going to play with some builds and see what comes out. But I'm probably going to. I'm probably not going to end up in my big buy-in and my 2,500 with AD and Fox, but I certainly don't mind that. Or AD LeBron. I'm sorry, or Fox LeBron. I think those are very reasonable. D'Angelo Russell had a huge game the other day, so I'm sure people will ask about him because he just had a huge game. Just, he's fine. I don't see him as being like a priority of any kind. It's a good matchup, but I don't think you can, count on him going nuts every game. And I just think that he had a really good game, and that's going to happen sometimes. And, you know, that doesn't mean it's going to happen every night. I don't know what else to say. But yeah, he's definitely like, I have him like right on the fringe of being like a decent play. I probably won't use him, but I wouldn't mind if you did.
So I'm gonna run a. You can go through your priorities now. I'm gonna run a build here while you do that. And again, there's news still to be determined from, I guess, from the back to the front. I mean, Giannis, but I agree with you. I think that because it's a nationally televised game, it's likely to be resolved. I do think that just a number of these back-to-backs just provide the opportunity for some funny business. And like you said, I guess you want to know who's starting in the Utah game, but I'm not sure. And yeah, okay. So who do you think? Who are your priorities as I finish this build here?
So I've got I like the Cleveland side. I have Garland, Mobley, Wade, Philadelphia. I've got Payne, Harris, Oubre. I'm going to be whittling these down. Then I like the Harden Şengün idea a little bit. I do want to get to one of the Bulls right now. It's Kobe White, but I might be different a little bit later. And then on the Utah side, deciding between Samanic, Dunn, Sensabaugh. I have it Samanic, Dunn, then Sensabaugh as my value. And then I also like the idea of John Collins or one of the other guards there. So, you know, you get a lot of the plays that I mentioned that I like are in the 6 to 9K range, which would leave out 6 to 8,500, I guess it is, and leave out the Fox and Davis, who I really like as well. But that's sort of like the 12-man group that I'm working from right now.
Yeah, as I run this, I'm actually getting 100% right now. Jared Allen.
I brought campaign. Yeah.
I'd be getting 100% Jared Allen, and then 80% basically of Garland, Payne, and Wade. And then you're getting the Samanic. But then, like, the guy who I'm really getting a bunch of is Anthony Simons, which is a little surprising to me. So that's what I'm getting for now. And if in fact I were doing an actual build, I mean, like, this is where I would mess around. So first I might consider doing a contest sim, but at the very least, depending on how many lineups you play, like I set it for 150, you do like a certain amount of min uniques, and that kind of spreads out. Like you see, like over here, now you're getting a little less, I guess. Jared Allen, like, actually not really. Boy, you're going
to get a lot less Jared Allen because his projection on SaberSim is like 6 points higher than it is everywhere else.
Okay.
Okay. So I think that Jared Allen, like, and for what it's worth, Jared Allen's projection on SaberSim right now, I know Mobley's been playing, but he's hit that number one time in the last 20 games. So just keep that in mind. It's a great matchup. So I'm not going to say I don't like Jared Allen, but whenever guys are projected at a number they never hit, it's always a little bit, or very rarely hit. It's always a little bit interesting to me.
Jared Allen, if I'm not mistaken, was one of your heroes, right? I mean, he was one of your
last year.
Yeah, or was it 2 years ago? It was. You would definitely hit something really big with him, or it was really close. I remember. You know, it's funny.
Oh no! I won on opening night with literally the one pivot on, like, I won the FanDuel big one, but it was Jared Allen at like 0.6% ownership because they didn't start and they started DeAndre Jordan when he was still in Brooklyn. So it was during the bubble at some point, or right before that. All right, I'm just taking a look through and seeing if there's any questions. B-Maxing, what about Clarkson? I like Clarkson, so I'm in. I like the Utah guards today. Even though it's a tough matchup for whoever gets the Caruso treatment, it's going to be a tough matchup. What about D'Lo? I mentioned my thoughts on him already. And then there was the point about the Bulls being slower paced. And yes, it does have some cause for concern. I don't think you have to play all the Utah guys like you did again, but remember, Utah's also down another body that was playing 28 minutes in Taylor Hendricks. So that's why the value for Utah is showing up so strong.
I'll give you something else, another lesson about last night. And I hate to be results oriented, but unfortunately, that's when it gets people's attention more. And I would say it anyway, but because you got people's attention, I want to talk for just another minute about Sam Merrill. And you brought it up yesterday. You brought it up yesterday. You brought it up today. You bring it up every single time. Him or someone like him is popular. Like, there's some archetypes of players that are better at chalk than other types of players. And when you have these guys that are dependent on shooting, they're just usually very, very fishy 40% owned guys. And it doesn't matter that they're starting. You know, it doesn't matter that they're playing 30 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it matters because if you're in the game more, you have more opportunities to take your threes. But that's just a real high variance sport. You know what I mean? Like 3-point shooting. It's not that high, but like when you're relying on it as chalk, it's just a very, very dangerous way to play. You know, and I mean, people got away with it sort of. I mean, because he got enough where he didn't bother anybody. But be careful about those types of plays. And yet, and the converse is true. And I'm not saying that he's like necessarily an amazing play today, but I certainly think that in GPPs, when you have to beat a bunch of people or whatever who are going to be relying on these same projections that I am, yeah, I think that this is the type of spot where you might want to take a shot at somebody like that, because in the same way that you don't want to play these shooting reliant guys as chalk, these are the types of guys like the Jordan Pools and the whatever, that they do get hot at low ownership. I mean, it's also not even going to matter what their price is in a way, like. I mean, is it going to matter that Merrill's 4,100 versus 5,000? He's making his threes? Probably not. So
right.
That's I guess that's another kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way, a good point to make. And we'll have more at 6 Eastern. We're going to be doing a golf show as well. I think that we covered most of the stuff in the chat. Please hit the like button, guys. We like to do these videos for free, et cetera, et cetera. Sorry to get angry before when people are getting frustrated about us not doing it, but we're doing it the exact same way we always do it. We just sort of have to keep up with this for the first shows. I do try to get to the questions whenever we can, but the first shows are meant to be going through game by game, and happy to answer everything, but just can't jump games 5 in a row at a time. Otherwise it would get a little messy. All right, Sheets, anything else you want to show or talk about before we get out of here?
Just do really, these are just dummy builds. They're not going to probably resemble, they might resemble stuff, but they're not going to. But again, I like doing this again just to get practice doing it. So
yeah. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, good luck today, and we'll see you guys at 6 Eastern.
Yep.